as Hashem Yisbarach. So I want to just mention that this shir is for Shleima for Chana Liba Bas Chaya Sarah, together with all of those who need refuah shleima. I myself happen to be one of them. Nothing too serious, but I haven't been at my full energy last couple of days. So, we are continuing with the Halakha. Ishbitzer, waiting for it to load over here. It was teaching us about this dichotomy between Torah and mitzvahs, as we started to see yesterday. That Hashem makes the world with these dichotomies, with these binaries, heaven and earth, soul and body, night and day, Torah and mitzvahs. And we said how Torah is something that is more understandable and a person can grasp with their mind and really unify with, and it sticks with them, becomes part of them. Whereas the mitzvahs that we do, being in the world of experience, we can't have that same sense of grasping them, of fully getting what they are. And so the way we connect to them is actually through the difficulty in doing them, what he calls the saflanas, the suffering of doing them. We have to pay money for them. We have to give of our time and of our energy. Now we're going to see how he relates this back up to Yovel and to Shemitah. And we ended off yesterday saying that a person can find the place of the unity of Torah and mitzvahs when they're able to find that mitzvah that is like at the base of their soul's mission in this world. Gewalt, I wish I could find that one. B'ezrat Hashem, there is such a thing. And he says there's something to daven for. Hashem should open up the Torah for you. Or when we daven, that Hashem should open up our hearts with His Torah. It means the mitzvahs that are related to the prat nafshay, to my specific, unique soul. The big Indian in Ishbitz, this idea that one of the big ways that they're teaching this in Ishbitz is, maybe the most major way, is what's the biggest sign? Is it's the thing that you also have the most kind of resistance with and difficulty with. It could be pointing an arrow that right in there you have actually tremendous potential for tremendous godliness in that area. When the person merits to find that thing that they're really in this world for, and as they're doing that mitzvah, it mamish is filled with Torah. It's no longer for him like something like a big weight that he's carrying. Adarabba, the opposite is true. He sees at the time that the mitzvah that he's doing is carrying him, as we saw by the Aron, the Gemara, amazing Gemara in Saita, Aron Nasas Noisav, that the ark, the golden ark, carried the ones who carried it. So again, he spent all this time talking about this dichotomy, this difference between Torah and mitzvahs. How mitzvahs there's something tantalizing, something frustrating, something heavy about mitzvahs because we don't have a full sense of what they are, what they really mean. Whereas with Torah, there's something very satisfying that you can understand the idea and kind of download it, have it in you, it connects up to everything else about you, and it's with you. And yet now he's in this mode of talking about how the two can be at their root, they're really one, and how this is hiding, kind of lying at the root experience of doing that mitzvah that each one of us has a thing, a kind of a mission that we're here for. And when we do it, it itself uncovers more and more Torah. We start to have a sense of why and what, and maybe we don't see all the way to the end, but to drive from New York to LA, you only have to see as far as the headlights, right? Because at root, in truth, the Torah and the mitzvahs are one. That which a person understands with his mind, this is called words of Torah. And even within the world of Torah study, that which is outside my understanding is called a mitzvah, something you just have to do. But what is this idea that Hashem has hidden from us? What the specific mitzvahs that we're each here to do? Again, we're commanded with all of them. But each one of us is something special we're here for. And it's hidden from us. So how do we deal with that? And why did Hashem make it that way? Because none of us know for sure what we're really here for, so we each have to do a little bit of everything, so that hopefully along the way we'll also hit on that thing that we're really here for. Through this comes out all of the levels, all of the facets of the Jewish people. Each one of us needs to stand with the different parts of the Mishkan. There's the parts that hold up the crushing, the beams of wood that held up the Mishkan. Some are the tent that goes over. So how could it be So Am Yisrael as a whole, we kind of form this picture of a Mishkan, each one of us related to a particular part of the Mishkan. And yet, how can it be that each one of us has only one spot and only one particular place, and some are maybe more exalted than others? The pasuk says, "Amech kulam tzadikim," that we are all righteous. Shebichlal Yisrael achasu sheshem Torah mitzvahs rak she'etzel zeh. So, what does it mean? Am Yisrael are all one. So how could it be there's different places? Hashem Yisbarach ohev mishpat. So how could it be that one of us will end up being holding the higher parts, and some of us holding the lower part? Is that Hashem will put into us that this is what we're going to want. The person holding the beams, they say, it's okay, I don't need to be the tent on top that's way up there, because I'm the one holding them up. And the one up there says, oh, I want the high stuff. I want to be flying up there. And says to the rest of the Jews, hold me up, hold me up. And so each person is going to want that part that is related to who they are. We're going to gravitate naturally to that place of who we are. And each person will choose it and gravitate towards it. On the one hand, he said, Hashem hides from us exactly what it is we're meant to do. I spoke about this in the last Torah we saw from him also. Hashem hides from us. This has to do with us having free choice. If we all knew exactly what we were here for, maybe we wouldn't have the same kind of free choice that we have. And furthermore, it's going to, like we said, give us each a lack of clarity. So we're all going to try out all the different parts, all different possibilities, which are pictured in all the different facets of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, all the different complex parts of it, the vessels, the menorah, the table, the mizbeach, the building of it, the Holy of Holies, and so on. And we're all going to be trying out each part of it. And then throughout our lifetime, we're going to end up gravitating. Hashem's going to put into our hearts a desire for that which is really what we're here for, what we're each here for. But this whole story of the hiding of what we're here for and of the experimentation with all the different aspects, and then the gravitating towards Zat Hashem, that which is the most related to who we are, this is all only in this world. But when the Yovel year will come, at which point Hashem will show that nothing depended at all on any of our deeds. That everything was all set up exactly so from the beginning and even before creation. Exactly the degree to which each soul will have its connection to Torah. Yovel hu ani bina, because Yovel is this time of revelation of bina, of this great, awesome, all-encompassing divine understanding. Ubina isa bezer kodesh hay nahar afagav delavi hudina mina dinin nisarin. That bina is a river, that great river, even though it itself is not strictness and judgment, still it is from there that judgments awaken, arise. Rak b'neicha because by Hashem, this is not out of any kind of a din, only from a place of the deepest repose, the deepest menucha, very important word, naicha. Purim is related to the word nachu, the day that the Jews rested from their enemies. Each soul has its way of relating to Torah, its amount, so to speak. It's not exactly a quantitative thing, but he says, just what parts of Torah each one of us are connected to. On the one hand, there's our life now in this world where we each need to try our best and not just say, well, Hashem already knows, and so whatever I end up with in my connection to Torah and my growth with this process of Torah and mitzvahs, as we've said, and the attempt to unify the Torah and mitzvahs, the attempt to find that which is the mitzvah of my soul through experimentation, through gravitating towards, hopefully, what I'm really here for. This whole process, we have to take with utmost seriousness and do our absolute best, and not try to, as we've said many times, not try to skip to that Yovel level, to that Jubilee year level, that 50th year level. Is that something that Hashem will reveal one day in the future, and is not something that we have yet right now. And we must exercise our full choice to the fullest, B'ezrat Hashem. And so that great river of understanding that precedes creation, that already knows where we're going to hold, this needs to be hidden from us. This, like we said yesterday, from the Heilige Rambam, in the laws of Tshuva, that's where he puts that we must not try to understand the paradox of free choice and divine omniscience, because if we get too lost in that, we may say, why should I even try? What's the point of doing, of repenting, of returning, if it's all from Hashem anyway? All my sins were from Hashem anyway. We have to take our life right now seriously. And this is like Ishbitzer saying, beginning of this Torah, Tov lahodos l'Hashem. What's good right now is to give thanks to Yud Kei Vav Kei. We have to relate to Hashem, who gives us our existence, and recognize that we're in debt to Hashem, and mamish, do our best to live a very divine and beautiful life with real effort, built out of a sense of thanks to Hashem, like a Jew is called Yehudi, from the word Hapam Oides Hashem, like Leah Imenu said, this time I shall thank Hashem. That's how the name Yehuda, the name Jew, comes, the word Jew comes from the word Lahodos, to thank Hashem. And it's from that place that we need to live our lives as Jews and really put the effort in, out of recognition of the great good Hashem has done with us, and try to live up to it. It's impossible to live up to it, but do our best as humanly possible. But L'zamer l'shimcha elyon, the verse like we started off with from the Psalms 92, the Tehillim about Shabbos, Tov lahodos l'Hashem l'zamer l'shimcha elyon. This is what life needs to be. That our basic thing, what's Tov, is to give thanks to Hashem, to have that basic foundation of our service of Hashem from a place of thanks, and which includes within it a place of effort, what he calls sivlonos, this kind of a bit of shtickle, a little bit of suffering, to work, to do the work of finding Hashem and serving Hashem, learning Hashem's Torah, putting our nose to the grindstone, doing our best. And l'zamer l'shimcha elyon, that means, yeah, we sing to that exalted name, that name of Ekia, Asher Ekia, I shall be as I shall be, that name that is the Yovel name, that name that is beyond our free choice, the name that will be revealed one day all the way, and we'll see it was all set from the beginning by Hashem. But l'zamer means to hold ourselves back, to not be overly connected to that place, because then we might not work and do what we can in this lifetime. As we're going to discuss this more tomorrow, that things need to be hidden now in this world in order that we can do that work. And it's of great value, and we know that this is true. We know that this is true, that it's a great gift to have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's a great gift to have Shemittah, to do the work of working on ourselves. It's a great gift not to just skip straight into the Yovel transcendence. It's a great gift. We know this in a very profound way. So that is, we'll continue with that tomorrow. But today, I'm going to now do some learning about the Otzer Beis Din. And then tomorrow, we're going to look at the concept of Heter Mechira. So we're going to read through here an article, a very nice article I found online from Rabbi Yirmiyahu Kaganov. I'll be adding in a little from my own notes also. And we have to know, first of all, okay, that the concept of an Otzer Beis Din is very ancient. He doesn't mention here some of the history. I'll tell you a little bit. There's a Tosefta, Masechet Shvis, chapter 8, 1 and 2, Tosefta 1 and 2, which describe how in former days, agents of Beis Din would sit at the entrance of each city. When anyone brought Shemitah produce to them, they would take the produce to be stored in the city's storehouse, the Otsar. The word Otsar means a storehouse. However, they would leave the person enough produce for 3 meals. The person who brought them the food, they would leave him 3 meals worth that he could take home, and the rest would be stored by the Beis Din. When figs ripen, agents of Beis Din hire workers to harvest them and make fig cakes out of them, and then store them in the city storehouse. Right. So the Otzar, so the Beis Din, the Beis Din means rabbinical court, would hire workers. It's described from well over 2,000 years ago, that they would hire workers to go harvest the figs and make fig cakes out of them that they could then store in the Otsar of the Beis Din, in the storehouse of the Beis Din. When grapes ripen, agents of Beis Din hire workers to harvest them, tread them in the wine vat, and pour the wine into barrels. Then they store the barrels in the city storehouse, same thing, like the figs. When olives ripen, same thing. And then every eve of Shabbos, these products are distributed according to the needs of each household. What's the concept behind this? There's a beautiful Ramban everyone should learn, to Vayikra 25, verse 7. Who brings this whole Tosefta and has a whole discussion about, a beautiful discussion about Shemitah. We went through it when we were learning the Mishnayos a few months ago. And the concept is that because it's kept hefker the whole time they're storing it on behalf of everyone, of the entire community, and it does not belong to any one person. It does not belong to the rabbinical court themselves. It doesn't belong to the farmer. It doesn't belong to the workers. The workers are indeed hired and paid money, but then the actual produce, the figs, olives, the grapes, which are described in Tosefta, or other products could be, are stored away in the storehouse, the Otsar of the Beis Din. So because it stays hefker the whole time, therefore there's no business dealings being done with them, as we've seen. One is not allowed to do business with fruits of Shemitah. That's one of the prohibitions of the holiness of the fruits of Shemitah. And secondly, because it remains ownerless, it is therefore also not prohibited to harvest them en masse. We saw that harvesting, we discussed this the first day or two of our learning of the halachas, it's forbidden to harvest Shemitah produce en masse. A person can just go and take what they personally need. But when it is a Beis Din that is acting on behalf of everyone, and it is not being harvested for business purposes, it's just being harvested so that it can be stored away and won't go bad. There's no prohibition. You're allowed to harvest it en masse and then store it for everyone, on behalf of everyone. Okay, so let's read over here for this article from Rav Kaganov, and I'll bring in also some more. Okay. The owner of a vineyard is not required to produce wine for me. On Shemitah year, if somebody owns a vineyard, we don't say that they have to produce wine for anybody, only to allow me to harvest the grapes for myself. I can go and take. He has to allow anyone in at any time. If I don't have the equipment or expertise, I'll be unable to utilize my rights. Although I have a right to travel to pick citrus, mangoes, bananas, if it's not convenient for me to go, not so convenient. So how can I utilize the benefits of Shemitah? So comes the Beis Din, who represents the consumer. And like we described in the Tosefta, they hire people to gather the fruit, crush the grapes, olives into juice, and oil, ferment the juice into wine. The Otzar Beis Din, the storehouse of the rabbinic court, acts as the consumer's agent and hires all the different laborers, rents the wine production equipment, purchases the bottles, produces the Shemitah fruits and oils, so on, and delivers them to convenient distribution center near my house. We saw from the Tosefta this would happen in ancient times. Every Friday they'd give out to everybody. And it was done according to the number of people in the house. Obviously, Otzar Beis Din cannot expect pickers, truckers, and other laborers to work as unpaid volunteers, nor can they use production equipment without paying rent. Similarly, managers who coordinate are also entitled to a wage. Otzar Beis Din divides these costs among the consumers. However, no charge is made whatsoever for the fruit. This is crucial, right? Since they are hefker, they are ownerless, only for the labor and other costs involved. Thus, Otzar Beis Din products should cost less than regular retail prices for the same items. Similarly, throughout this whole time, the farmer must allow anyone to enter his field and help himself to his crops. All the other halachas of Shemitah apply to the produce, right? Anything you get from Otzar Beis Din has the holiness of Shvis. Modern Otzar Beis Din. The Rabbanim and Beis Din of Yerushalayim organized the first modern Otzar Beis Din 97 years ago. Or it's more than that now, right? 1910. So now we're talking about 110, 111 years ago. Rav Tzvi Hirsch Cohen, a Talmid Chacham from Rehovot who owned vineyards and orchards, came to the rabbis of Yerushalayim, requesting that they function as his Beis Din, as his rabbinic court, to distribute the wine and fruits from his orchards. The written contract, extant to this day, we still have the contract, was signed by Rav Chaim Berlin, the Rav of Yerushalayim, Yosef Chaim Zonnefeld, Rav Pesach Frank, both of whom were later also served as rabbis of the city of Yerushalayim and other prominent dayanim. To enable Yerushalayim residents to receive the wine, someone had to arrange to harvest the fruit, process the grapes, transport the product. Since Rav Cohen was the most qualified person, so they appointed him to be the representative. He himself was the owner of the vineyard, right? As an agent, he was entitled to a wage for his works, as were his other employees. But no one was entitled to any profits on the produce, only for being paid for their time, for their work, but not the grapes themselves. The Beis Din established several rules to maintain that the laws of Shemitah were scrupulously kept in this arrangement, and that Rav Cohen was paid as a manager, not as an owner. For one thing, they predetermined the price that the consumer would pay for wine, guaranteeing that it be significantly lower than its usual market price. That's very important. Because of the laws governing the harvest and use of Shemitah produce, they also insisted the following rules. 1, wine and fruits could be distributed only to people who would observe the Shemitah sanctity of the produce, right? These people are going to pay a certain amount, not for the wine, they're paying to support the workers. Then they get this wine. Well, we're only allowing the wine to be sold to people who know that they're not allowed to waste the wine or destroy it, and that they're not allowed to turn it into a business themselves and make a profit from it. And that if for some reason they sell that wine for the same price they bought it for, they'll know that the money that they receive from it will also have the holiness of Shvis, as we've discussed. People have to know all these laws, so they insisted that you could only sell the wine to people who are observant of the Shemitah laws. Secondly, as we mentioned above, the vineyards and orchards had to be available for any Shemitah observant person to enter and harvest for his own needs. Right? That's how that is. The whole idea of Shemitah is that the field needs to be, as we discussed the first week, it's best for a person to actually speak out that they're on Rosh Hashanah, this coming, just a few days, less than a week from now, to declare their field to be ownerless and available to anyone on Shemitah on the 7th year. So they have to make sure that the field's being used. Like they can't say, oh, well, it's the Otzer Beis Din, and so I can lock it because now, the grapes will eventually reach people. No, it has to be left open to anyone to come in and harvest for their own needs also. Number 3, the products were not distributed through stores. Cannot sell this wine through a regular store, but were divided as communal division of bulk product. The products were not weighed or measured. Each individual participated in dividing the Shemitah produce, paid Rav Cohen as Beis Din's agent, for which the consumer was entitled to shares of wine and produce which he delivered in bulk containers without an exact weight. And finally, that the actual harvest of the product, and this is a chumrah, was produced by Gentiles and in an atypical way. Didn't want to come close to Jews working land or even to looking like Jews are working the land. The Chazon Ish, in his analysis, Chazon Ish is the great posek of Bnei Brak, passed away, I forgot what year. I think it's nearly 50 years ago already. Follows a more lenient approach than that of the Beis Din Yerushalayim. He said, representatives in Otzer Beis Din could harvest normal way and use Jewish labor, right? Like I mentioned before, it's a chumrah, it's a big, major, strict approach to only allow Gentiles, because as we've said, so long as it's totally ownerless and being done on behalf of everyone and not for the sake of business and profit, one is allowed to harvest in the normal manner. Thus, the Otzer Beis Din of a modern farm, following the Chazon Ish's ruling, allows Jewish staff to use combines, regular farm equipment, to harvest and process the Shemitah produce. In addition, the Chazon Ish permitted weighing and measuring produce sold through Otzer Beis Din. In his opinion, the prohibition against weighing and measuring Shemitah produce is only because this indicates I'm the owner of the produce. Weighing and measuring is a form of showing ownership. However, weighing and measuring that the Otzer Beis Din is doing is just to determine a fair distribution, a fair division of the costs involved in supplying the produce, and not to demonstrate ownership. So today, Otzer Beis Dins today that function under the Chazon Ish, they will measure and they'll use Jewish labor. The Otzer Beis Din of Yerushalayim 97 years ago was stricter than this approach, did not allow any weighing or measuring of produce. Each participating household received units of wine or fruit which were deliberately approximate, not measured or weighed. In the modern Otzer Beis Din today, the grower plants everything before Shemitah and is given extremely detailed instructions regarding what he may and may not do during Shemitah. Once again, Oter Beis Din does not mean that you can plow the land, that you on Shemitah on the 7th year, or that you can plant the seeds, or that you can prune or do anything to make the trees grow and thrive better on Shemitah. No. All that Oter Beis Din allows is that the reaping, the harvesting, can be done in a mass fashion and in a normal fashion, because the Torah prohibition against harvesting is only when it's done en masse for the sake of a profit and as done by an owner as an owner. But when it's done by a Beis Din, by a rabbinic court on behalf of everyone, while retaining the ownerlessness of the fruits themselves, there's no problem with doing harvesting and reaping en masse. But plowing the earth, planting, these are totally still prohibited. Pruning, totally still prohibited. What must be done is everything has to be plowed and planted before Shemitah, and then all you can do during Shemitah is water it in a minimal way, as we discussed at length previous weeks of our learning. To survive, you're allowed to do what's needed to make things survive, as is anyone allowed to on Shemitah in their own garden. You can do what you need to maintain and to stop damage, to avoid damage, but you cannot do anything that will cause things to thrive, to grow better. The grower must allow any Shemitah. So again, that's what these instructions are. They plow and plant everything before, and then they have extremely detailed instructions, exactly what they're allowed to do to maintain things as they grow on the 7th year, Shemitah year. The grower must allow any Shemitah observant person to enter the field or orchard, help himself to the produce. This is still done today. That the Oter Beis Din that is functioning properly, as we'll see, unfortunately, some people will call themselves Oter Beis Din when aren't really functioning totally properly. Unfortunately, as with days of old, as we saw about the Sfichim prohibition, it's a hard mitzvah to do, and there's a tendency, unfortunately, to cut corners. But in any case, Oter Beis Dins that are functioning properly are going to allow anyone in at any to take help themselves to the produce. Usually, the grower has agreed in advance to a price for his produce, which he will receive, regardless of the quality of the produce. The grower must understand that this price is not a purchase of the produce, but compensation for his out-of-pocket expenses, including compensation for his own time. Now he has Rav Kaganov here as a nice, it's a little bit kind of a difficult thing to read. It's sort of a bit sad, but okay. Now is the time to approach our second question. Is an Oter Beis Din good or bad for the Jews? First of all, one thing that he doesn't discuss is that there are people today who are strict and do not eat even things that are from the most scrupulous Oter Beis Din. Why not? Because in order for Oter Beis Din to work, they have to have the power to maintain the ownerlessness of the fruits the whole way through. And that means that the rabbinic court has to have a power called Hefker Beis Din Hefker, that the ownerlessness, as declared by the court, is a true ownerlessness. And some maintain that today the rabbinic court does not have the full authority over laws of commerce, laws of ownership in Eretz Yisrael. And hence, if they don't have that power, well, that undermines the entire concept of an Oter Beis Din. So there are people today who are strict no matter what and won't eat from an Oter Beis Din because they're concerned that the whole process is moot because the rabbinic court doesn't have the power to maintain ownerlessness throughout. Okay, but most, says the Chazon Ish, wasn't so worried about it. He leaned towards being lenient with it, and many do eat from Oter Beis Din. Definitely one can rely on it if one finds a good Oter Beis Din that is reliable. As we're going to see right now, that unfortunately, not everyone who calls themselves Oter Beis Din is in fact affiliated with a proper Oter Beis Din. So we need to be careful with this. Unfortunately, we need to be careful with this. And B'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow, I'm going to give you a list of some good ones that can be relied upon. B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully I'll be able to find. I myself, I moved to Israel the year after a Shemitah year, so I am just kind of getting used to the on-the-ground realities of existing bodies such as Oter Beis Din of today. But let's see what he says here with Kaganov. Modern term Heter Oter Beis Din. The heter means a leniency. Leniency of Oter Beis Din is used pejoratively. The purpose of the Oter Beis Din is to serve as the customer, not the producer. Unfortunately, unscrupulous individuals sometimes manipulate the rubric of Oter Beis Din to allow business as usual attitude and violate both the spirit and halacha of Shemitah. If a farmer is operating with a true Oter Beis Din, he will allow a Shemitah observant person to enter field and help himself to produce. That's number one. Oter Beis Din does not mean that the farmer does not have to treat or declare his field as ownerless. He still must do that. He must allow people to come in and take what they want. If he does not allow people to pick their own without charging them, then he is violating the basic laws of Shemitah, and his produce is not according to Oter Beis Din principles. So as Rabbi Kaganov, who's been in Eretz Yisrael a lot longer than me, I know of farms that call themselves Oter Beis Din, but in reality bar free entry of their fields during Shemitah, or where the field owner treats the produce as completely his own and charges accordingly. Since this contradicts the meaning of Oter Beis Din, it's no longer the storehouse of a Beis Din. It's really the farmer's own stuff with a name Oter Beis Din attached to it, but it's not real. These cases are called Heter Oter Beis Din, meaning a permissibility based on an abuse of the concept of Oter Beis Din. Because of these concerns, some Hechsherim discourage the use of Oter Beis Din. So there are today some rabbinic bodies of kashrut, of some kosher certifying agencies, that's what a hechsher is, discourage using any Oter Beis Din for this reason. Unfortunately, it turns into a bit of a political mess. Once again, one of the biggest signs that an Oter Beis Din is for real is if the price is way lower than the regular price, and it's being handed out, in crates of large amounts, and it has, as we'll see tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem, the name of a reliable Oter Beis Din on it. Doesn't just say Oter Beis Din without any proper name of which Oter Beis Din it is. Just on Sunday, I was at a date farm, Mevoot Yericho, very beautiful area. Met an amazing Jew there, he's from France. You can go meet him. His name is Doron. He grew up in France with a very Jewish name that stood out, and kind of forced him to be aware of his Judaism his whole life. And he mamish moved eventually to Eretz Yisrael. There's a much stronger sense of his Jewish identity, and he came exactly to that spot with 3 other unmarried men and founded this place where he's been growing date palms for the last 25 years or so, something like that. very beautiful, shining Jew. And he was explaining to me what they do for Shemitah is not Otzer Beis Din, which we've seen today, and we'll see a little more of tomorrow. And it's not Heter Mechira, which we'll see more on tomorrow, but it's a third option. And I'll give you also B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow a little more on that. What's the third option? The third option, there are rabbinic bodies today that give you the option to acquire Jews buying farmland from Jewish farmers. They buy, and there's still a few days left before Shemitah, you can do this. They buy a section, each person gets like 6 feet by 6 feet of land, Dalet Amos of land, and they, because they're the owner of a part of the farm, they get the spiritual benefit of the mitzvah of Shemitah observance. The farm completely observes Shemitah. That means nobody is harvesting in any organized way. Nobody's harvesting the dates, not an Otzer Beis Din, nothing. Individuals who can come and take grapes, can hear its dates, can come and take dates, but nobody's harvesting them. All that's done is that the date palms are maintained throughout the year at a minimum level, which is determined in advance, what they need to make it through the year. And the money that is used towards the buying of the land is given to the owners of the farm so that they can have money to live on during that year of Shemitah, and so they can have the money necessary to maintain the date palms, which mostly has to do with keeping the water irrigation system going at a minimal level all year round, and a certain amount of other maintenance. So that is another option, which is just plain old Shemitah observance without any official distribution of a Beis Din, without selling the land to non-Jews, rather Jews helping Jews. This is a third thing, and there are many different bodies out there doing that. B'ezrat Hashem for tomorrow I'll get you, first of all, a list of Otzer Beis Dins which are considered reliable, and secondly, and a list of a couple organizations that do this, so that if anyone wants to, they can participate and buy some of the land. Yafi Kol Tuv, and thank you for joining me.